Is Mary Ann here?
Yes.
Yeah, Mary Ann. I'm here.
You know Brian's coming?
Yes, he is. I was just thinking of that just now.
Yeah, okay, so
Just now.
we generally leave the curtain open until Brian gets here, because the curtain, causes some
Sorry.
difficulty. No, that's all right, you didn't know that, I've never made that announcement, it's a brand new announcement. So,
Just on
Does he have
the
a
left
spot
hand.
to get in?
The other side.
I'm sorry?
Does he have a spot to get in over there?
Yes,
Yeah.
he
okay.
just doesn't have a table, he'll live with that.
Yeah. He adjusts.
Yes, I know.
No, I'm talking
Much-
about the wheelchair.
Okay, how's the sound? All right, so let's just begin by not freezing, by settling in. So the way we do that, or one way to do it, because there are many ways to do it, but one way to do it is to kind of gently close your eyes or keep them gently open, but really focus in on your body sitting here. You know, we don't have any place else. We chose to be here, so we don't have to be anyplace else. We're not trapped here. We can leave at any time. But just to check in with your body. When we meditate, it's helpful to sit up straight, to have your feet on the floor or on a cushion so that you're actually not having your feet dangle because of stability. And then by bringing our attention to our body, just scanning our body just to make sure it's okay, or just breathe into any spots that you realize you're holding tense. Sometimes we hold our mouth, area around our mouth and jaw tense, our foreheads, our shoulders. So we just check in with them. And allow ourselves to feel grounded sitting here. And then we want our minds to join us. So it can help by bringing your attention to the sensation of the breath going in and out of the body, either at the tip of the nose or just the rise and fall of the belly. And it's fine to keep thinking. It's just we want to be thinking about what we're doing in this moment, not scattered backwards to the past or chasing after the future. But just sitting here, breathing, knowing that we're sitting here breathing. And we want to use our time well. So whatever reason that you decided to show up this morning, set a positive intention to use this time well. And whatever reason we're here, if we use our time well, we will benefit. And we want to combine that with the wish that it also also ripple out to benefit others. And just like we wish to be happy and to reduce our suffering, so does everyone else. So let's recite the four measurables. That's on page 35 of, no, it's not. It's on page 34 of the prayer book. So you may have to share prayer books. You have one in your, well, no. So please share if, pass them back. 3 people can look at one. It's a 4-line thing. It's not very long. And if I was smart, I'd put it up on the screen, but, Sorry about that. Okay. All right. So may all sentient beings have happiness and the causes of happiness. May all sentient beings be free from suffering and the causes of suffering. May all sentient beings be inseparable from the happiness that is free from suffering. May all sentient beings abide in equanimity, free from attachment for friends and hatred for enemies. Is anybody here new for the first time? Hi, my name is Tendrin. I'm a Buddhist nun, so there you go. Welcome. So feel free to ask questions. You can also, if there's anything that just burning question that comes up that after class is over, feel free to come up and ask me, or during class. So we recite the 4 measurables because the 4 measurables are talking about 4 measurable minds. It's the mind of love that wishes others to be happy and have the causes of happiness. And it's the mind of compassion that really wishes people to be free of suffering and the causes of suffering. So it's a reminder both of the kinds of minds we're trying to generate and also about the fact that happiness has causes and suffering has a cause. And so if we want to get to that state that is inseparable from the mind that is free of suffering, then we need to understand that there are causes of suffering and that perhaps we can change that and quit creating the cause of suffering. And one of the ways to do that is through developing a mind of equanimity. So it's this, it helps remind us of how the more that we can take care of our minds, cultivating the mind of love and compassion that's free from our personal, things like, just love for my family and friends, but love for everybody. Really wishing everybody would be happy, because we kind of all know that when we're suffering, our actions aren't so skillful. So it's to everybody's benefit if everybody reaches this state of happiness and not suffering. So, but we tend to be partial about it, and we tend to be more willing to want our friends to be happy and our loved ones to be happy, and not so much anybody else. And it's not that we actively think, oh, I don't want you to be happy, although sometimes we rejoice when something bad happens to people we don't like. And we want to break that habit. That's such a great habit to have. So, anyway, so that's a little bit about the 4 measurables. So how's your mind? Am I screaming?
No.
Okay, good, because I never know with this mic, because I'm loud. So- Okay, apparently we have a bunch of blank minds.
Mine is exhausted.
Yours is
I'm
exhausted.
concerned. I'm very sad
Okay,
because my father had a problem since the 31st. He's been in the hospital. He
I'm
came
sorry.
on vacation,
Yeah.
and we have a huge problem now.
okay.
So
Well, my mind keeps thinking about something I shouldn't think about ever. I mean, you know, and it just keeps going back there.
That's because we're out of control. Anybody else feel out of control? Yeah.
Not out of control, but I wanna thank you because the meditation this morning was awesome.
Glad it was helpful. So, okay, so, we're often, if we look at what's going on in our minds, we often discover that it's doing something that's not productive. Like it's going in some direction we don't really want it to go, and every time we go, stop that, we still go back there. And that's habit energy. It's just the habit that, that we can't tell our minds, stop that, and have it listen. So we have to practice that. That's part of disciplining our minds, of being able to recognize, no, I don't want to go that way. And whatever reason I think that that's what I want to think about, it's a lie. So, we have to be very firm sometimes with our minds. Then other times we can be caught up in worries about something that's happening. It's not like that there aren't occasions where we're sad or we feel helpless or there's, all of those things. What we want to be able to distinguish though is between allowing ourselves to sit with the suffering we're experiencing, whether it's sadness about a loved one, sadness for ourselves because we suffer, as opposed to constantly trying to avoid the experience of sadness or helplessness and try to kind of act like we can come up with a solution for this. So we worry instead. What about this? What about that? What da 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 and that's not helpful. It exhausts us. Because our minds, and don't ask me why, the mind's not physical, so I really can't tell you why you feel exhausted when your mind's racing around doing unskillful things, but it does. So we really want to be aware of whether or not, what we're thinking about is if it's helping or not. So there are times when we've got something that we're trying to come up with a solution. There's nothing wrong with that. Of course, if there's a solution, and we first have to look at it to see if there's a solution, and then we try to implement that solution. There's a difference between problem solving and trying out different things and finding out, oh, that didn't work, but maybe there's something else, and you keep looking for that, and worrying. The mind of worry is just kind of a wishing mind. I wish that you're just kind of allowing yourself to keep searching for a solution when there isn't one. And when we feel sad, that's often the case, is that there isn't a solution. And we're trying to, I'm putting words in your mouth, that's not fair. But often it's that we have an aversion to not feeling well. And our sadness doesn't feel good. And so we escape into sort of this thinking pattern instead of just allowing us to sit with the sadness and the helplessness. And perhaps there's going to be a loss. So that, if we can allow ourselves to just sit with what's happening, it will pass. All thoughts are impermanent, Doesn't mean they won't come back. it just means we don't have to feed it with the worry. As long as we're not sitting with it, it can't pass. If we keep trying to like take it away by thinking there's a solution to this, and if there's no solution, you're not allowing yourself to just go to acceptance and deal with the suffering that we're experiencing. And running away from suffering, well, you know, we should run away from habits that cause suffering, but we do suffer. And so trying to cover up our suffering with a search, but you know, for a solution to our suffering, when there's not I mean, there are many things we cannot solve. And one of the ways in which we add suffering to our lives is when we try to fix things that can't be fixed. You know, when we just keep searching, you know, I must not be doing everything right, otherwise I wouldn't suffer. You know, we just keep a story going on in our minds instead of facing the situation head on. And you see a distinction between problem solving and worrying. It's difficult because they can feel the same, or they can look the same in our minds. Yeah.
I noticed today you have this technique about labeling, and it's helped me. Instead of say don't think or don't worry about that, you just label and say why you keep going in the past, or why you keep going to this. You know, labeling it's help. It's get more concrete. Like
Yes.
More
So
exact.
that's a technique that when you're meditating, you know, and you're just, you know, you're kind of focusing on your breath, and then the thoughts arise, because they arise. Instead of following the thought, like asking it, oh, why do you feel this way? Getting involved in the thought,
Right.
we can just label it, you know, worry, to try to nip it in the bud, as we say, you know, because we don't need to expand upon it. We need to learn how, you know, because that's sort of the difference between problem solving and worrying. You know, problem solving is constructive, looking at a situation, assessing things, looking for solutions. Worrying is really just this wild mind that is allowing every negative thing to come up about something with no solutions, and it just wears you out. So when you can start getting familiar with the difference between when you're problem solving and when you're worrying, then you can just, you know, label, when a worrying thought just comes up, you can just label it as worry and try to let it go. And you need to remember what are the advantages of letting go of worry. What's one immediate advantage? Energy. You're not exhausting yourself with the mental energy of worrying. What else can you do if you're stop the worry? Your mind is more clear, focused. You can actually maybe do something skillful. You know, like maybe you need rest. You know, maybe you need to put your mind on something else for a little while so you can rest. Your body might not need rest, but your mind may need rest from that subject. You know, so if we interrupt the habit energy of doing something that's not skillful, and so this is part of the benefit of practicing with some meditation, because it gets you in the habit of doing that. You know, being able to go, oh, I'm just worrying, and that's not productive. So this is the part of analytical meditation, where we look at what are the advantages of worrying.
The thing I noticed that worry for me was always about somebody else's action or lack thereof, or somebody's behavior, whereas problem solving is about me, what actions I can take.
What I can actually do.
Yeah.
Yeah, so worrying is, well, and it's just sort of, what's the word?
Useless.
Get back to it. It's pretty useless. You know, because worrying doesn't solve anything, and it doesn't support you. And if it doesn't support you and you're trying to be supportive to someone else, you're taking away your energy. You know, so the less you can, it's really obvious in certain occasions, like if, you know, if you're helping someone who's in a hospital or your family's in the hospital, there's a lot of stuff you have to also do, right? You know, make sure they're getting all their, you know, we advocate for people, you know, in the hospital. We have to make sure they're getting all the things that they need. We do the things that they're not able to do, like make sure their house doesn't burn down, and clean their house, bring clean clothes, whatever it is. There's, you know, take care of their responsibilities, you know, help their partner, the person, you know, there are all sorts of things that are going on. So if we spend our energy worrying and not just probably going, oh, well, this needs to happen, so who could help with this, who could help with that, I can help with this, you know, we don't have the energy to do it. And we're so distracted that it takes us longer to do anything we're doing. You know, because our mind's being pulled in 80 billion directions, you know. So, and when you're already tired, you don't need that additional waste of energy. You can't, you know, it's like you start to not be able to function. So it's this recognizing, you know, being able to go, oh, I'm just worrying, that's not helping. Not going there. You know, and you drag your mind. Sometimes you have to drag your mind to what the task at hand is. You know, it's not easy to do. And other times, you have to allow yourself to feel the suffering. So when you have that space, you know, you're at home now, you're alone, or you're sitting quietly, or you're about to go to sleep, you know, you can sit down and allow yourself to feel the sadness. You know, maybe deal with the fear that might be, you know, part of what's going on. And not feed it. Not say, oh, yes, I'm sad because. You know, we know why we're sad when we're suffering. You know, I mean, it's not even important. It's just that sadness is there. We have a fear. We can sit with the fear. If we keep trying to avoid it, no support can arise. We have to allow it to be in order to support ourselves through it. But we often just get pulled, because it's, you know, I don't know, for many reasons, but one of which is just the habit of trying to avoid what we find unappealing. You know, it's something, a state that we naturally don't want to experience. But when it's there, trying to pretend it's not there doesn't help. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
I often, when I worry, lately, since I've been coming here, I remind myself of impermanence.
Yes.
And that sort of helps me realize I'm not always gonna feel this hurt or this sadness, that it's gonna pass.
And not only that, the moment of sadness will pass. You know, you'll have a period of time that we can look back, that was a sad time in my life. But within a sad time in your life, there are many moments that aren't sad. You know, so we want to be aware of the immediate temporariness of things, and that over time things get better in terms of, like, if you're experiencing grief or sadness, over time it lessens if we allow it to exist. But it's this, so impermanence helps, but sometimes impermanence just is a reminder of loss. You know, so that, you know, it can help us, impermanence can help us with acceptance. You know, that we will, you know, lose people. Things change. We think that we're going along and everything's going fine, and then suddenly something changes. You know, and we feel sad about that. If we allow ourselves, it's sort of like, oh, you know, but that's how it is. You know, everything changes all the time. So there's a point in thinking about how science tells us how everything that we see as if it's kind of solid, you know, this book's really here, it's solid, I can hit you over the head with it, which is not recommended. So, you know, but it's not actually like that, is it? That's just what our eyes see. Actually, it's this, you know, it's nothing but energy and space, lots of space in between those little things of energy, you know? Yes?
Sometimes the biggest challenge is when you are actually physically sick or
Yeah.
having a physical challenge and you wanna, you're committed to your practice. I find that that's, I mean, lately I went through or am going through a physical challenge and was getting all kinds of anxiety about, oh my God, I can't, I don't have the energy to
Right.
do the visualization, and so all I'm able to do is, anyway, I do a lot of these guided meditations on YouTube with Mahayana teachers, and so the most I can do is just kind of rest my mind on the words.
And that's good enough.
Yeah, and I feel better, like there's a space of, like I just told myself, I feel horrible and I'm going to meditate.
Right.
Both.
Exactly.
And it just opens up a kind of space about it where I'm able to, but it's challenging.
But it's, of course it's challenging. Samsara is a lousy deal, you know? Existence is hard. You know, it's not like life isn't a challenge. So when we can not dwell on that aspect, but dwell on, okay, so what am I gonna do anyway? You know, so like it is hard when we're physically ill on top of the challenges, or in addition to the challenges, or it's one of our challenges, however you wish to look at it. So, but it's about being able to go, I'm attached when it was nice. But just because I don't feel well today, and so my, you know, my experience in meditation won't be the same as it was when I wasn't feeling ill, I still know there's benefit. It's just not going to be the way I like it to be. That's attachment. Grasping after what we're attached to causes us suffering, because it's not available. When we're grasping, it's the essence of, it's getting away from me. It's just, and we're trying to pull it back as if we have the power to do that, and we don't. You know, so it's just this, okay, you know, that's why, you know, getting attached to states of meditation doesn't help. It's not skillful. What you have to do is just show up. You know, whatever happens, you show up. And you show up within your ability. You know, if there's some crisis going on, you may not be able to spend as much time. Or you may actually have to get up 5 minutes earlier. But it's amazing how we rest our minds that 5 minutes earlier isn't harmful. You know, meditation helps that mental exhaustion we experience when things are tough. And so it may be tough because of something that's happening to someone you care about, or it may be tough because you're struggling. You know, and it's about trying to figure out how to acknowledge the suffering, sit with the suffering, and also work within that. You know, but it's not, we can't fix everything, you know. And our resistance to that often brings us a whole layer of suffering, mental suffering, because we don't like it. And how do y'all feel about feeling helpless?
Angry.
Hey,
Out of control.
you're out of control. When you feel helpless, I think we're probably out of control most of the time, whether we're helpless or not. You know, that's part of the state of things. Yes, Anthony?
I think it's humbling.
It's humbling,
At the
yes.
same time, as you mentioned, like, I think it's helpful to think about, like, if there's something I can do about it, let's do something, but there's nothing. Like,
Yeah, so I'm talking about that nothing.
Yeah. I see.
That, when you feel helpless, what is your mind, where does your mind go? Did someone say they don't like it?
Anger.
Frustrating.
Frustration.
Yeah.
Deep frustration.
Deep frustration. Yeah. And if it's about not being able to help someone you love, how does it feel?
Awful.
It's awful. It can be devastating. You know? If it's a child, then you feel like you have the this is your job, is to be able to help your child. You know? If it's your partner, it's your job to be able to help your partner. You know? But there are times when we simply cannot. You know? So being able to deal with that helplessness, that recognition, there is nothing I can do to change this situation. So what can I do to be of help?
Be present.
I'm sorry?
Be present.
Be present. What does that mean in these situations? Yeah, you all get to do the work. Yeah.
Part of it is feeling your feelings.
That is part of it, yes, is that, you know, that there's, if we don't address how we are feeling about situations, our suffering that's experienced because someone else is suffering, then that becomes an obstacle because it's sort of boiling on, going on behind the scenes all the time, and that's exhausting. You know? Also, if we can't sit with our own suffering, how good are we at sitting at someone else's?
Not good.
You know, if what our minds do when we're sad about something or hating that feeling of helplessness is if what we do is go chasing after, well, maybe I could do this or maybe I could do that, and we keep trying to fix it. What happens when someone expresses to us their suffering? What do?
We don't deal with it.
We don't do. We try to fix that.
Not acknowledge it.
Oh, blah, 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 you could do this, you do that. I looked at this, I saw this on the website, da 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 da. You know, we go into fix-it mode. And so, you know, if it's a situation we can't fix, then that's really not helpful. It's not allowing that space for suffering. And the Buddha taught the truth of suffering for a reason. I don't know what that reason is.
Nature of life.
Yeah, but if we constantly are seeking a state of non-suffering, when there is the truth of suffering in this existence, how does that feel?
Frustrating.
Frustrating. What do you mean? I should be able to get this right. I don't know about you guys, but every now and then, you know, in my life, I've kind of gone, God, you know, by now, shouldn't I know what I'm doing? Yes.
I guess sometimes when somebody's suffering and you really can't help them or they don't want your help, you have to listen. Number one, just be a good listener, so they can hear themselves.
Right.
And also pray for them in a way, you know, that they get through it. However you pray for them.
And that's the point of compassion. In Buddhism, that's what we talk about, allowing that, being, you know, when you're sitting with someone suffering, including your own, is to have compassion. You know, really wishing that we were free of suffering. Because we know how it feels when we suffer. So we know that when someone else is suffering, we know what that feels like. So being able to sit with someone in that state without thinking, oh, I've got to fix this, It's like, I used to keep a cartoon somewhere, in my house somewhere. Anyway, where it's this little boy, you know, in the lap of his mom. He's looking at her with this kind of, you know, scowl, you know, and the little caption is, sometimes he just wants me to listen, you know. So we have to make space for that. Yes?
Why is it so easy to kind of fall into that default mode of trying to fix?
Because we don't like suffering.
I mean, like, listening to other people.
Because we don't want to hear their suffering. We don't, I mean, think about it, when you walk into a room and you realize someone's in a bad mood, is there a part of you that wants to walk out again? We don't like suffering. That's what the Buddha said. Everything that we do is chasing after pleasure and running away from suffering. You know? That's why we want to fix it. Oh, I don't want to hear about your problems, let me just fix it for you. You know? Because we really don't like it. You know? It's not to say anything bad about someone else, it's just that we're not comfortable with suffering. You know? Even though it's part of the deal. You know? It's ironic, yes.
Well, those of us who are nurturers, we don't want to see those people around us suffering.
That's compassion. And when you want to fix it, it's about you. It's not about them anymore. It's that you want to stop your suffering. Seeing them suffer. You know. Yes, there are 3 hands. Wait a minute, Joy?
I think that what you said is true, that when you see somebody suffering, they don't know or care that they're suffering. You want to fix it for yourself, and they want to suffer.
Well, that's a different story.
Some do, some don't.
Let's, I'm sorry, I don't know your name, with the glasses on top of your head.
Harriet.
Harriet, you had your hand up. Did you want to say something?
No, I think
Oh, Anthony. Go.
we look alike.
I guess it's really important to stop and listen when they're talking, because I mean, there's sometimes people want your advice, but there are other times when they just want to kind of express themselves. So, I mean, is that?
Well, I mean, one of the things that we have to do is realize that if someone doesn't ask you for advice, why are you giving it? You know? So, you know, that's one thing. Now, when you're raising children, it's a different subject, you know? So, but also, we just want to check up with our own mind and say, why am I doing this? You know, we need to recognize when we're really trying to make us feel better, you know, and we're not allowing the other person's expression of their suffering, you know. It's not, you know, like people that just seem angry all the time. Well, we just wish they weren't. You know, we want to look at that and look at, you know, that's about us. And so as long as we're helping ourselves, the focus is in the wrong place if we're trying to help others. You know, it's not that we don't benefit. We do benefit from helping others. There's no question about it. That's what the Buddha said is the path to happiness, is helping others. So, you know, it's not that we don't benefit, it's just that we need to recognize that our focus, you know, when we're being there for others, is on the other. We just need to keep checking. Is this about me? It's sort of like, okay, I've listened for 5 minutes and now I'd like it to stop. You know, we just have to be honest with ourselves. Yeah.
Yeah, it's also,
Harriet.
if somebody's angry all the time, sometimes you get angry that they're angry because they're not supposed to be angry.
Well, because you don't like it.
Exactly, so you're coming from your perspective of what's right and what's not right. You know what I mean?
And
Rather
also, you're
than-
coming from the perspective that you can control other people.
Right.
And how
Yeah.
effective is that?
Not.
No,
Doesn't work.
doesn't work. So it's another unskillful habit, you know? And it doesn't make us happy. It makes us feel frustrated and angry and blah, blah, blah. So that's a way we add suffering in our lives. Is if we think I should be able to get this person to change, we are creating frustration for ourselves. Whereas if we go, I can't change others, I know that, that's a fact. So this habit of thinking I can and acting from that habit is a waste of energy. So again, you look at what can I do to be helpful? Maybe nothing. You know, sometimes we decide not to hang out with certain people because all it does is create a condition for ourselves to lose it. You know, but other times, this is why family's so helpful. You know, we have family that we don't want to just abandon because we don't like some of their habits, you know, but we can practice with them about trying to learn how to find that place to be accepting of where they are. That does not mean tolerating abuse. It doesn't mean saying, oh, no matter what you do, I love, you know, I'm going to stand here and love you. No, you might love them, but you can get out of the way. You know, I mean, that's a wise thing to do, and it's the compassionate thing to do. We don't want to be a condition for others to act harmful towards us. You know, so it's just, you know, but can we change the other person? No. They have to do that.
And if they can't get to you with their abuse, that they may start to recognize that. So, you know, not allowing them to affect you that way, and still be in their company. But if they start
Or not be in their company.
But if they start to realize it's not making it, you know, a difference.
Again, maybe not.
They may try hard.
Well, I mean, it's not the point, but it certainly isn't compassionate
It's not compassionate.
to allow someone to hurt you. It's not compassionate for them, it's not compassionate towards yourself. You know, you can't, you know, people don't change or can't change or don't recognize they need to change, like you're saying, if there's no consequence. You know, I know one, because I was the person who was the harmer. You know, my relationships, I was the jerk. I was the one who needed to shut up. You know, so I totally get that. I had to be really fine. You know, those lines had to be drawn. You know, like, when are you going to get the picture that you need to shut up? It took a long time for me to get that. And in all that time, I was hurting people, you know. So, I mean, like, I can tell you, it is not compassionate to let people go on and hurting people, you know. But I finally got the message. But what did it take? Someone finally saying, you know, my therapist says you're an abuser. You know? And it's like, whoa. And I think I'm just a clever speaker. You know, no. This is why we have to really look and be honest with ourselves. Where am I coming from? Because we lie to ourselves all the time. Oh, I'm just being honest. Oh, I'm just being, you know. No, you're being mean and destructive. You know, so we really, you know, and so if you're the person that tends to be on the other side receiving that kind of abuse, you need to recognize you're not helping yourself or others.
I think I read something like honesty without tact is cruelty, something like that.
Yeah, we need to recognize the near and far enemies of compassion and love. You know, like compassion, I think, I always get this wrong, so I shouldn't even go there. But pity is not compassion. Not in the way we use the word pity. Pity involves looking down on someone. Compassion is really acknowledging someone's suffering and wishing them to be free of it. You know, and if there's something you can do to help, you're happy to help. But if there's nothing you can do to help, you can still wish them to be free of suffering. You know? So it's the kind of thing like you can, you know, the Buddha really encourages us to, you know, make the distinction between behavior and the person. You know, that you can wish someone to be free of suffering, wish someone to be happy, and not tolerate their behavior.
That's really hard.
Yeah, it's really, yeah, it is hard.
Yeah.
But who wins? You know, if you want a win-win situation, we have to take responsibility for our parts, for our side of the deal. And it's not easy. You know, so it's about, but it's having that, this is when we need compassion for ourselves. You know, that we're suffering and that's hard. So the skipping the step of being with our own suffering, being with others' suffering, you know, can cause things to like fester and get out of control. So none of this is like really an easy process, except the good news is, if you allow yourself just to be aware of what's going on, you'll notice it passes. Yeah.
Well, one thing that I've been trying to do lately that I don't know why it never occurred to me before is that instead of jumping in to fix something because of my own anxiety, I have to ask the person, what is it that you need right now?
Yeah.
And that's a big difference.
Yeah, it's really, you know, communication is difficult. You know, so if, you know, sometimes we just have to look, am I asking the right question? Or do they even know what I'm asking? It's like when you asked me about the door, you know? You didn't, you know, you just kept saying, are you starting? Well, yeah, I'm starting. You know, sometimes we have to remember, are you asking if I want you to shut the door yet? No. Communication's hard. You know, we're not clear. We start conversations in the middle all the time. You know, we've been thinking about it all the way here. And then we start, you know, blah, blah, and they're looking at you like, did I miss something? Yes, you missed the 30-minute of conversation I had on the way. So, you know, this is not being aware of what's going on in our minds. And what we do, you know, like, oh, we haven't actually started the conversation. You know, we also, I think it's hilarious how we can actually have those conversations. We think that person said those things, you know, and then we hold them accountable for that. Oh, I know what you're gonna say, because I've been practicing it for hours and days, you know, and we really can't see that that's not something they said. You know, we're so prepared for that response that that's what we hear. You know, we have to really be aware of that. You know, that we project tones of voices on others, we project meaning to body language, we project all kinds of things, and then we read articles in magazines that say, oh yeah, you see, I'm right, I can read your body language, you know, blah, 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 blah. Maybe. So it's really helpful to keep going to the place we have the most control, which is our own minds, our own speech, our own actions of body. And right at the moment, if we're not looking, we don't have control. Because our mind's just following our habit. Oh, I'm meeting this condition, I'm gonna get impatient. I'm meeting this condition, I'm gonna eat chocolate. I'm meeting this condition, I'm gonna do this. You know, we just keep doing. We don't even have to think about it, we just react. React. That's why it's called reacting. You know, what we wanna be able to do is respond. We want to act, not react. So we want to be checking up in in your mind to say, how do I want to respond to this? And not follow the habit energy, automatically. We want to quit that remote control thing. We want to, so that way we can interrupt the habit of worry, or interrupt the habit of impatience, or interrupt the habit of whatever we realize is not skillful. Or at least notice it's going on. You know, I'm a very fearful person. And so I had to spend a lot of time just noticing oh, I'm afraid. So I had to, act with caution, the big yellow lights flashing, You're afraid, and that distorts how you respond to things. So, just be aware, proceed with caution. Doesn't always work, but at least I'm not lying to myself. Whatever I do, I can go, oh, yeah, I know where that was coming from, I was afraid. And I act badly when I'm afraid. So it's this, being aware and not being harsh to ourselves about, well, you just shouldn't be like that. Well, yeah, I'd love to just not be like that, but, until I'm just not like that, I need to be on top of it. I need to be able to be aware, and then that helps me step back a little, and sometimes give myself a little pep talk of, there's nothing to be afraid of here. What are you afraid of? Making an idiot out of yourself? Oh, you do it all the time. Doesn't kill you. Don't worry about it. Are you afraid that you don't know what, you don't actually know what to do? Oh, gee, that's unusual. That hadn't killed you either. So, relax. It just depends. Are you afraid you're going to lose this person in your life? Well, you need to find that out. So, So in my case, I needed to learn that my behavior was the cause of the strife in my life. My words, my way of thinking, all this kind of stuff. And we just need to start, and I was an extreme case, so not encouraging y'all to find out the way I found out. So but it's more of just looking. We just need to look and kind of go, oh yeah, that's probably not so skillful. Oh yeah, that's really all about me. I say I really want to be helpful, but that's not what's happening at this moment. But it all passes. It's like when you're trying to change a habit. I've heard all different kinds of things. Like if you just wait for 19 seconds, the urge will pass, or whatever. But it's true that it will pass if you just wait. It's the waiting we hate. You just wait. Okay. And if you allow yourself to think of something else, you will. But if you keep feeding that, oh, I've got to have this. Oh, it's so hard to not have this. Oh, blah, blah, blah. Then what are you doing? You're keeping that in your face. I want this and I can't have it.
I did that a lot with donuts.
Yeah. I do it with chocolate. Like enough is enough already. But apparently, I don't listen to myself at all. So, but this is that thing, is that because I feed that story. Oh, but it's right over there on that counter. Oh, there are cookies probably out there, the tea thing. I'm so glad it's no longer in the front, in the entrance, because it's like a magnet. Oh, I find that appealing. Boom. This is what we have to be aware of. We're a mass of cravings. And most of the time, craving isn't a good mind to follow. Because craving has an energy that is not just, I like that. It's, I have to have that. And that's not true. It's lying to you. So we really want, it's not about not having anything that you like. That's not the point. The point is to get rid of that craving. This has to happen this way. They have to be like this. I can only eat this food. Whatever. That craving mind is that mind, I can't be happy until. And that's just a setup for not being happy. Because first of all, we often have that thought while we're having it now. So we miss that experience entirely because all we're thinking about is having more of it. Oh, how can I manage to, drive past this bakery every day? I'm exaggerating. But, this is we just need to be aware of this, is how our mind actually operates, is it's looking for this. And we can change it. Our habits come from our habits. We've been listening to it. So if we start telling ourselves a different way of, a different approach, we can learn that too. You know, but there are times when it's harder. You know, when we're sick, when we're tired, when there's some event we have to attend to, you know, that we have to really try to pull our focus in because it's taking so much of our focus to be able to function. You know, and we have to respect that. There are times that are harder than others. There are also happy times. We really don't want to miss those. Worrying can help us miss those. So take a moment to introduce yourself to each other. So if there are new faces, say hello.
Good, how are you? Yes, how about you?
Hopefully I can make you laugh. I'm going to send you a text with an explanation of the meaning of life.
Okay.
You'll like it.
This is easier in a crowded room. Yeah. That's so interesting. Okay. Okay. I'm learning. So, anyway. Everybody meet someone new? Okay. Good deal. Someday you'll have to introduce me to them. So sometimes when the energy gets, you need to shake it off. Okay, I'm still here. I'm still breathing. I'm still a human being. You know, Buddhism, they were constantly reminding us that the next moment might not be like that. Okay. So one of the, we talk a lot about having a precious human rebirth in this tradition, and it's about, having the leisure time to show up to a place like this, that we're not just having to focus on survival. And so this is good news. But one of those things that's also brought up is about our good conditions is that there are still people who care. That care about how you're doing, that are interested in things being better for others and, for the world and just in general. And I think we lose sight of that a lot, that it's so important to, according to Buddhism, that's our Buddha potential. We all have the capacity to become enlightened according to these teachings, and the proof of that is in all of our actions of kindness and compassion and patience and generosity and wisdom, all of those things. So that's the proof we have, and it's all around us all the time. So we don't want to lose sight of those qualities of our mind. So when we look, you don't want to just notice your unskillful habits. You also want to notice your skillful ones. Oh, this one looks good. I want to do more of that. Whatever. But we want to recognize, all of it, not just the stuff we want to change or feel like it needs tweaking. We also want to notice, wow, we have kindness. We have genuine concern for others. That sometimes we're really wise. We do know what we're doing. and we're really helpful to someone. They really feel helped. So it's this, you know, it's both of those things. And we want to rejoice about that because it's wonderful. You know, so sometimes if you're feeling heavy or down or just, you know, like, the world, it's a mess out there, it's helpful to just take a few minutes to just sit there and think about, say, one type of action and think about how many people are doing that right at this moment. So you can just think about smiling. You know, at this moment around the world, I bet there are lots of people smiling. At this moment around the world, there are people teaching something to somebody else who asked to be taught that. How wonderful that is. How amazing that is. There's someone, there are actions of, oh, can I carry that for you? Can I help you with that? You know? And it's not like, oh, there are probably 23 people doing that. There are thousands of people doing that in this moment. And we have those moments. And that's a wonderful thing. And that's what, that, you know, I often say, thank goodness. Oh, thank goodness. And it literally is that. From goodness comes good things. And the Buddha just taught that everything that we experience, that it's positive, that we like, all those flowers, all those sunsets, all those, well, maybe some people don't like sunrises, you know, but all of that is coming from our positive actions. That's the result of our positive actions. That we enjoy moments is an experience that is the result of our past positive actions. You know, and there are lots of them. You know, so we can, you know, take refuge in that. We, you know, we can find, you know, our good qualities are our inner wisdom. You know, that's where we want to draw from, not from those unskillful habits of mind. You know, so that's why we want to be aware of them when they arise. Oh, I don't want to come from that place, so I need to step back and give myself a moment to adjust, you know, or at least do nothing. We want to come from those wonderful qualities we have, and we just have to, like, correct our motivation sometimes. So when you're taking the time to, you know, look at what's going on in your mind, recognize all those different energies, because we're a mixture of things. You know, we love children, but we're also kind of attached to what, you know, to what they, you know, like, oh, I don't want my kids to be, you know, acting like that, you know, because of our own image or something. That's attachment. You know, that's when we're distorting the goodness of love and affection with our own self-interest, you know. Please, I want my reputation to be good too. So, you know, so don't be so noisy or blah, 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 whatever, you know. That's about us. And so we're a mixture of things. And what we're trying to do is tease out the things that aren't so great and abandon those. Let them go. Because they cause us suffering. You know, they certainly cause others suffering. And then, you know, let the goodness we have, you know, kind of take up more space of the mind. Because if we're not spending it in impatience or anger or frustration, those things are what arise. So it's just, you know, it's kind of wonderful. So I don't want to, you know, we dwell on what's difficult because that's what we need help with. But part of that help is noticing our inner wisdom that we already have, you know, and giving it good conditions to flourish. So at the end of the day, you know, one of our practices that we do in this tradition is to kind of look back on the day and say, oh, well, how did I do? You know, did I harm anybody? Was I, you know, really unskillful with anybody? And then, you know, we acknowledge, oh, yeah, I was really harsh with so-and-so, or I didn't even notice the kindness that somebody was showing me, and, you know, whatever. And you know, you feel genuine regret for if you know, harm someone else by your attitude, or if you just, you know, or by your indifference to their kindness, and, you know, whatever it is, you just acknowledge it, you know, and then you make this, you know, determination to try to do better. You know, tomorrow I'll try to, you know, I may even apologize to the person who I was sort of indifferent to, that was trying to help me. You know, you may do you know, say prayers for the harm, for the people you harm, those kinds of things, and for yourself, for that matter, you know. But then you want to rejoice about all the things you did well, and it doesn't have to be well by anybody else's standard. It can be just, oh, you know, there's some things I just, you know, that's just naturally what comes up. Yay, this is good. And other things, wow, I saw myself hold back, you know, from my habit energy, and, you know, feel good about that. See the benefit, you know, see your efforts in action. So that's how we want, you know, that's how we want to end the day, is in rejoicing. And then we can look forward to, you know, oh, I get another chance tomorrow. So, you know, it's that balance, because we're not all just, you know, unskillful people. Yes,
I was
Harriet.
thinking about being judgmental. Hello. And I was thinking, because I was brought up in a family that was very judgmental, and all my siblings are judgmental, and I'm judgmental, you know. And I was thinking the negative that it does, and what it does right now, you know, what it does is it isolates you from people. It keeps people
Them.
at a distance.
Yep.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So you feel separate, you feel like you don't belong.
Or better than.
Yeah,
Or
exactly.
afraid of.
Exactly, and it's an isolating thing.
Yep.
So personally, I'd like to work on that.
Yeah,
I
and
don't
that's,
quite know how, but.
well, that's again, just recognize, I am judging someone else.
Right. It's very hard to.
Well, no, of course it is,
Yeah.
because you have the habit. But it
Oh, yeah.
isn't, you know, it's just about developing a new habit. The first part of that new habit is just noticing, oh, there I go again. You know, I'm judging everybody, you know, and that gives you a little pause. And then eventually you kind of go, okay, that judging harms me and others. You know, you just remember why it is you want to give this up, you know, and then you kind of are able to go, I'm not following that thought. That's not helpful. I want to give up judging, you know. And then eventually you can do all those shortcuts, because as soon as it starts to arise, you just go, I'm not listening, you know, and you move on. And eventually it won't arise.
And I think compassion can also help you to not
Yes,
be
especially if you're,
judgmental.
yeah, I think so. So those both. But first, we just have to recognize that we actually have no clue, unless you're clairvoyant, you have no idea what's in someone's mind. So judging the person is a fabrication. I mean, you're just making it up.
Often we judge and we find out later after knowing that, you know, like an initial judgment, and you find out later that that person's not like that at all.
Yeah.
You know, that
You're just wrong.
Exactly.
You know, it's just wrong. You're wrong, you're wrong, you're wrong.
Yeah.
And we're wrong because we think we know when we don't know. We're judging people on one little moment of time. Also, we're judging actions and saying that that is the person. Well, that's not true either. You know. Plus, while we're focused on them, we're not being mindful about our own actions. It is distracting us on what we actually have control over, which is us. So like what we might do if we're focused on that is kind of see someone doing something that we think is very unskillful and think, oh, I'm wondering if they're suffering today. I wonder if they're yelling because they're worried about something, or something wrong has happened, or they just got bad news, or, you know, whatever. You know, we give them our compassion as a response, instead of getting all caught up in, and they shouldn't do that, you know. No wonder they're unhappy. You know, blah, 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 you know. We need to recognize what the mind of judgment is like. How do you like it when someone comes up to you and says, you know, you really shouldn't do that. You know, if you did this instead, you'd feel a lot better. What, you're eating another piece of chocolate? You know, don't you know that's gonna give you a headache, and you're gonna be, and you're gonna get fat, and da 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 da. Oh, we love that. But yet we're spending so much of our time doing that in our mind about someone else. That's such a waste of time. Yeah.
What about the judgment of thought? Because earlier you were talking about labeling things as this and that, and some thoughts being preferable to other ones.
Not so much that. I didn't say that. I just said to note what they are. You know, and that's just so we can not feed a storyline. Because what often happens is we'll have some thought arise, and then we follow it. You know, oh, I'm cold. And then we go, oh, I should have worn a sweater. And then we go, da da da. And we're just following some storyline, you know, that it doesn't serve any purpose. We want to be purposeful. We want to be able to, you know, so the purpose of doing that when you're meditating is being able to go, stop following it. You know, you just label it and let it go. Some people don't need to do that, you know, but if you have trouble letting go, it can be helpful to just note what it is and not add the next thought to it. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. Now, we do have to judge whether we think something's skillful or not, but that's a different practice. That's when we realize, oh, I seem to have a pattern here. I tend to spend an awful lot of time thinking negatively about others. What purpose does that serve? Well, it actually ends up isolating. You know, that's an analytical meditation. You know, where you really look at, is this a skillful habit or not a skillful habit? Is it accurate or inaccurate? You know, so that we can figure out which habits we want to give up. You know, but it's not about people. You know, it's not about, oh, I'm a terrible person because I spend an awful lot of time thinking negatively about others. That doesn't serve any purpose. You know, it's just thoughts. We just want to get a handle on our thoughts. You know, we don't have to feel good or bad about the self. You know, that's just another story. But it's about going, oh, maybe the way I'm thinking is affecting my behavior, and the way, you know, and the level of suffering. So, like, I mean, you know, in simple, so then you come up with all those reasons. Oh, so judging others isolates me, makes me think I'm separate from, makes me think I'm better than. Also, what does it feel like to think nothing but negative thoughts? Does that cheer you up? So it's like, oh, I want to suffer. Let me just sit here and think negative thoughts about all of you. You know? Oh, yeah, that's going to make my day better. You know, we have to look at that. Just look at it. Go, oh, well, gee, maybe that's not so wise. And just have a sense of humor. We do a lot of things that when we look at, go, well, that was kind of foolish. You know, maybe I will let go of that habit. And then other things are much harder. You know, we really have to give it some thought. We have to put a lot of effort into just, you know, like, I mean, I was a jerk. So I would have to just sit there non-stop thinking, you know, don't go there, don't go there, don't go there, don't say a word, don't say a word, don't say a word, you're wrong, you're wrong, you're wrong. I'm not kidding. I mean, that's what I had to do. I did that solid for a year. I mean, just that's all I did was keep your mouth shut, you know. You know, this is, yeah, oh, my goodness, you know. Oh, just, you know, listen to the suffering. Doesn't matter if it makes sense. It's the suffering. This person is suffering, this person is suffering, this person is suffering. I'm the cause, I'm the condition of that suffering. I hadn't met Buddhism yet. But, you know, I mean, it's just this, you know, we have to recognize that sometimes if you really want to change, You have to be firm about it. You have to be determined to do it. If you know that you have a habit that is harming you and others, you have to, hey,
You have to have discipline, which is really hard.
except we're already disciplined. I can judge everybody in this room in no time at all. I'm really good at it. It's a skill. We have to recognize that. We have been applying our discipline, our diligence, to all sorts of things that don't help us. It's about changing the focus. And it is hard. We like what we're familiar with. This is why our teachers say, become familiar through meditation with new habits. But it does have to become a habit. Yes, it's difficult. It is. And it's laughable. I mean, can you imagine telling yourself for a year, you're wrong, you're wrong? And I needed every bit of it. Every bit of it. It's just about acknowledging, oh, this isn't working. What I'm doing, I can keep on doing, and I will keep trashing people for the rest of my life and feeling terrible about it, never having a good night's sleep, and never having a successful relationship, and always being yeah, we can choose to do that. I did it for a long time.
And you can have that judgmental part in your mind. It doesn't necessarily have to come out.
Yeah, of course.
So people think that you're totally accepting and
Yeah.
because
You're
that's-
lying, yes.
And then you're really lying to yourself.
Yes.
And then you feel like a phony, because you're, this is too much. Because you're lying to yourself
Yeah.
about it.
This is how we create suffering for ourselves.
When people say, oh, you're so non-judgmental, I can tell you anything, and blah, 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 and I'm a good listener. And there's a part of me that is not judgmental, but then there's another part that
It is.
in my head.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, a judgment usually is just in our heads.
I know, it doesn't come out.
No.
I'm not telling somebody, oh.
Yeah, I only
you're
told my
an idiot.
spouse that.
You what?
I was very judicious on who I trashed out loud, and that was my partner. Didn't work out well.
It's better to, even if you think it, to not say it. than to
Of
also
course, it's
say it.
better to not say it. And that's where you start, is just not act on it. That's why I kept having to tell myself to shut up. Shut up, shut up, shut up, shut up. Absolutely. But it still harms you. The thinking it harms you. And that's where you have to develop self-care. If you turn it into who you are, then you don't deserve any relief. Sorry, you're stuck. You have to say, okay, often we come from a place, I am tired of hurting others. That's a good place to start. And it's really valuable. It's a part of our goodness that we have even had the desire to not hurt others is part of our Buddha nature. But then we want to also go, it doesn't help me to think that's the only way I can be. So it's this process of really valuing who, you. I want to be happy too. And what I'm doing is not going to leave me there. The bonus, the win-win aspect of it is if I learn to cherish others, I'm going to be happy. Nobody loses with that scenario. So it's but changing, if you come from an orientation like I did, it takes a lot of effort. But I'm unrecognizable. I know it works. Now I'm still a jerk, but old habits die hard. But there's no question that a lot of habits I had don't even arise anymore. They just don't come up. And that just was training. It's acknowledging this is not a habit that is skillful. Yeah.
One thing that helped me years ago was to substitute the person that would have been the object of my judgment someone that I care very deeply about, that I would not want them to be harmed by somebody else's similar judgment. So
That's terrific.
I was teaching at a university just as an English instructor, and of course, all the students were like, I need an extension on this, and you can't do this, and
I
my
was one of
grandmother's
those.
in the hospital, and I don't feel well, so I can't do the assignment, and all of this, where I wanted to be zero tolerance, no, you know. But then I would think, if it were my son,
Yeah.
it's my son, I don't want the teacher to be, I mean, within reason, obviously, inflexible, intolerant, not understanding, and that helped me really change the way I related.
And that's a really good use of that, you know, so this is the idea, because Buddhism, you know, says that the teachings say that what we want to cultivate in ourselves is seeing everyone as our own precious child, and learn how to treat everyone as our own precious child. So that, you know, and according to Buddhism, they've all been that at some point, since there's no beginning, there's no end, these consciousnesses just keep changing bodies, you know, we've all been in those relationships. Now that's a little harder to kind of think about. So, but I mean, just this idea of, you know, this is someone's child, you know, so how would I want, if it was my child, how would I want whoever's interacting with them to act? It's, you know, these are the ways we can sort of, you know, and it's true about ourselves too, the way we think about ourselves. This is sort of that re-parenting, you know. If you didn't get good parenting as a child, you can re-parent yourself. You know, you treat yourself with respect and kindness and love, you know, so that it's, you know, don't blame others, just take it on. And also how you treat others. That's a great way to be able to do it, is just to remind yourself, this is someone's child, you know, how would I act, you know? I think what's really wonderful about using the example of a child is that we do have to set boundaries. We do have to do, it's not like we just let them run amok. That wouldn't be compassionate. Like you said, within reason, you know? It's not like, you know, people, you know, so this is the deal. You know, sometimes compassion looks wrathful. We have, I mean, and the, you know, Tibetans are great at painting images of wrathful Buddhas, you know, like, you know, because I had to be wrathful myself to get myself to change, you know, so it's this, you know, and, you know, we need that. And sometimes you have to tell children, you know, you will not run out in the street, you know. But we're not doing it from a place of anger. We're doing it from, I value you. You're the most precious thing. So, and you know, the more we can start to really foster an attitude of whoever I'm with are the most precious people. Because it's only who you're with that you have any opportunity at all. You know, we keep changing who we're with. You know, we're here with each other at this moment, but in, you know, 30 minutes from now, we'll be with other people. So, you know, having that, the most important people are the people you're with now. The most important thing you say is what you're saying now. The most important thing that you do is what you're doing now. So we need to be very self-aware of what's driving our actions, you know. And it just gets easier. I mean, we already do that. We're just following some unskillful habits of mind, you know. But eventually, if you quit practicing those, you'll have something else, you know. They fall away. Okay, yay us. We have, you know, we've spent all this time together trying to figure out, oh, how can I work with this mind, this unruly, out of control mind? How can I, you know, it's not really, you know, I want to, you know, to redirect it towards some other things. and we've been working on that. The whole world was spending their time like this. Things might be going a little better, you know. The good news is an awful lot of people out there who might not be in here have still been spending this time doing lovely things, you know. So we can just feel happy about all of that, you know. But you know, our efforts, their efforts, each other's efforts, all of that kind of stuff. And according to the teachings, all of these positive actions result in positive things in the future for ourselves. And so we want to share it. And so that's the purpose of our dedication prayers, is that, if there's something, if it's true that what the teachings say, that our positive actions end up with positive results sometime in the future, let's give it to everybody who's suffering until there's just nobody suffering at all. So it's a mental attitude. Doesn't matter whether or not we know it's a fact. It's about practicing this mind of sharing the good stuff. So that's on page something, 246, 4. How about both? It's either 244 or 246.
Shanti Davis one?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's 46.
46, 246. This is perfect timing, Madam Board. All right. Yep. We're ready? Okay. May all beings everywhere, plagued by sufferings of body and mind, obtain an ocean of happiness and joy by virtue of my merits. May no living creature suffer, commit evil, or ever fall ill. May no one be afraid or belittled with a mind weighed down by depression. May the blind see forms and the deaf hear sounds. May those whose bodies are worn with toil be restored on finding repose. May the naked find clothing, the hungry find food. May the thirsty find water and delicious drinks. May the poor find wealth, those weak with sorrow find joy. May the forlorn find hope, constant happiness, and prosperity. May there be timely rains and bountiful harvests. May all medicines be effective and wholesome prayers bear fruit. May all who are sick and ill quickly be freed from their ailments. Whatever diseases there are in the world, may they never occur again. May the frightened cease to be afraid, and those bound be freed. May the powerless find power, and may people think of benefiting each other. For as long as space remains, for as long as sentient beings remain, until man comes beginning to dispel the miseries of the world. So thank you very much for your presence and your participation. Grab a calendar for out somewhere outside for the upcoming events. And remember that, keep in mind that 2 weeks from today, or actually I guess 2 weeks from last Friday night, there'll be a weekend with Venerable Amy. So she'll be teaching, I think, Friday evening, Saturday, and Sunday. So there's flyers about it. I think it's on the calendar on the website with more information about that. So she visits usually at least once a year. So it's
Saturday, Sunday, Monday.
oh,
She comes in Friday.
Saturday, Sunday, Monday. That's right. I knew that, but I got it wrong. So apparently I didn't know that, but I like to think I knew that. Okay, so that's pretty much it. What?
I do have an announcement. I've been asked to announce that our Center Director, Nicole, was supposed to be here today, but she's not, so they could just another week to raise, what? Oh,